All right, boys and girls, we're going to start chapter 7. We're going to do this in 2 or 3 parts. It's a 15-page chapter, so probably 3 parts, maybe 4. We left off chapter 6 with Stanley telling us in a flashback scene at maybe a dream about what had happened the day that he got busted. We know he didn't do it, which is rare in a book that just tells us right away he didn't do it. But we found out how, and it was a weird way. His shoes came up over that overpass while he was underneath it, hit him in the head. He took him home, tried to do a good thing, and it turned out he got blamed for stealing them. So as we wake up in chapter 7, so does Stanley to his new world for the next 18 months. Here we go. The shovel felt heavy in Stanley's soft, fleshy hands. He tried to jam it into the earth, but the blade banged against the ground and bounced off without making a dent. The vibrations ran up the shaft of the shovel and into Stanley's wrists, making his bones rattle. You already have great hyperbole there, page 26, chapter 7. We're starting to get a setting, and the imagery is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It was still dark. The only light came from the moon and the stars, more stars than Stanley had ever seen before. It seemed he had only just gotten to sleep when Mr. Pendanski came in and woke everyone up. So there you have kind of the beginning of setting. So we're getting a time, because we know he woke up, and it's still dark, so you can try to figure that out. The time part of time and place. And the place sounds like Camp Greenlight. Using all his might, he brought the shovel back down onto the dry lake bed. The force stung his hands but made no impression on the earth. He wondered if he had a defective shovel. He glanced at Zero, about 15 feet away, who scooped out a shovel full of dirt and dumped it on a pile that was already almost a foot tall. For breakfast, they'd been served some kind of lukewarm cereal. The best part was the orange juice. They each got a pint carton. The cereal actually didn't taste too bad, but it had smelled like his cot. Spoiled milk. Then they filled their canteens, got their shovels, and were marched out across the lake. Setting. Each group was assigned a different area. The shovels were kept in a shed near the showers. They all looked the same to Stanley, although X-Ray had his own special shovel, which no one else was allowed to use. X-Ray claimed it was shorter than the others, but if it was only by a fraction of an inch. You got to think about that. X-Ray with those big glasses, like he can tell. Or maybe he can tell because of those big glasses. The shovels were 5 feet long from tip of the steel blade to the end of the wooden shaft. Stanley's hole would have to be as deep as his shovel, 5 feet down, and he'd have to be able to lay the shovel flat across the bottom in any direction. That was why X-Ray wanted the shortest shovel. The lake was so full of holes and mounds that it reminded Stanley of pictures he'd seen of a moon. If you find anything interesting or unusual, Mr. Pendanski had told him, you should report it either to me or Mr. Sir when we come around with the water truck. If the warden likes what you found, you'll get the rest of the day off. What are we supposed to be looking for? Stanley asked him. You're not looking for anything. You're digging to build character. It's just if you find anything, the warden would like to know about it. He glanced helplessly at his shovel. It wasn't defective. He was defective. So, again, great vocabulary word there, defective. What does that mean, and why is he calling himself defective and not the shovel? He noticed a thin crack in the ground. He placed the point of his shovel on top of it, then jumped on the back of his blade with both feet. The shovel sank a few inches into the packed earth. He smiled. For once in his life, it paid to be overweight. He leaned on the shaft and pried up his first shovel full of dirt, then dumped it off to the side. Only 10 million to go, he thought, then placed the shovel back in the crack and jumped on it again. He unearthed several shovelfuls of dirt in this manner before it occurred to him that he was dumping his dirt within the perimeter of his hole. He laid his shovel flat on the ground and marked where the edges of his hole would be. 5 feet was awfully wide. So think of what the word perimeter means. He kept dumping the dirt, so he'd have to move the dirt again. He moved the dirt he'd already dug up past his mark. He took a drink from his canteen. 5 feet would be awfully deep, too. The digging got easier after a while. The ground was hardest at the surface, where the sun had baked a crust about 8 inches deep. Beneath that, the earth was looser. But by the time Stanley broke past the crust, a blister had formed in the middle of his right thumb, and it hurt to hold the shovel. So it's going pretty well for our boy Stanley here. Lots of good description there, lots of good imagery, and we'll talk about what imagery means in a little bit. But you're looking for the senses, and you're looking for a lot of the senses. I've had some people say 3 senses make up good visualizations or imagery. I like 1 to me is really good visualization or imagery if it's done really well, and Louis Sachar does it really well. So we have this gap here while you're reading, and we're about to do another flashback scene. So realize that Stanley's doing this, and now we're going flashback. He's not thinking about this. He doesn't even know about this, I don't think. But this is a flashback to learn about new characters and new settings. So pay attention. Stanley's great-great-grandfather, oh good, pig stealing, was named Elya Yelnats. He was born in Latvia. Look that up. When he was 15 years old, he fell in love with Myra Menke. He didn't know he was Stanley's great-great-grandfather. Of course, he didn't know he was Stanley's great-great-grandfather. Stanley wasn't born yet. He had to have a son, and then another son, and then you get the point. Myra Menke was 14. So think about traditions. Stanley's 15, Myra's 14. She would turn 15 in 2 months, at which time her father had decided she should be married. Things have changed. Elya went to her father to ask for her hand, but so did Igor Barkov, the pig farmer. Igor was 57 years old. He had a red nose and puppy feet. I will trade you the fattest pig for your daughter, Igor offered. And what have you got? Myra's father asked Elya. A heart full of love, said Elya. I'd rather have a fat pig, said Myra's father. Desperate, Elya went to see Madame Zoroni, an old Egyptian woman who lived on the edge of town. He had become friends with her, though she was quite a bit older than him. She was even older than Igor Barkov, older than 57. The other boys of his village liked to mud wrestle. Elya preferred visiting Madame Zoroni and listening to her many stories. Madame Zoroni had dark skin and a very wide mouth, good character description. When she looked at you, her eyes seemed to expand, and you felt like she was looking right through you. Hyperbole. Elya, what's wrong? She asked before he even told her he was upset. She was sitting in a homemade wheelchair. She had no left foot. Her legs stopped at her ankle. So picture this lady. Dark skin, kind of looks right through you. No left ankle, sitting in this homemade wheelchair, made probably out of wood. I'm in love with Myra Menke, Elya confessed. But Igor Barkov has offered to trade his fattest pig for her. I can't compete with that. Good, said Madame Zoroni. You're too young to get married. You've got your whole life ahead of you. But I love Myra. Myra's head is empty as a flower pot. But she's beautiful. So is a flower pot. Can she push a plow? Can she milk a goat? No, she is too delicate. Can she have an intelligent conversation? No, she is silly and foolish. Will she take care of you when you are sick? No, she is spoiled and will only want you to take care of her. So she is beautiful. So what? Patooey! Madame Zoroni spat on the dirt. So she told Elya that he should go to America. Like my son, that's where your future lies. Not with Myra Menke. But Elya would hear none of that. He was 15, and all he could see was Myra's shallow beauty. Madame Zoroni hated to see Elya so forlorn. Great word. Against her better judgment, she agreed to help him. It just so happens my sow gave birth to a litter of piglets yesterday, she said. There is one little runt, good word, whom she won't suckle. You may have him. Another good word, by the way. He would die anyway. Madame Zeroni led Elya around back of her house, where she kept her pigs. Elya took the tiny piglet, but he didn't see what good it would do him. It wasn't much bigger than a rat. He'll grow, Madame Zeroni assured him. Do you see that mountain on the edge of the forest? Yes, said Elya. On the top of the mountain there is a stream where the water runs uphill. You must carry the piglet every day to the top of the mountain and let it drink from the stream. As it drinks, you ought to sing to him. She taught Elya a special song to sing to the pig. On the day of Myra's 15th birthday, you should carry the pig up the mountain for the last time. Then take it directly to Myra's father. It will be fatter than any of Igor's pigs. If it is that big and fat, asked Elya, how will I be able to carry it up the mountainside? The piglet is not too heavy for you now, is it? Asked Madame Zeroni. Of course not. Do you think it will be too heavy for you tomorrow? No. Every day you will carry the pig up the mountain. It will get a little bigger, but you will get a little stronger. After you give the pig to Myra's father, I want you to do one more thing for me. Anything, said Elya. I want you to carry me up the mountain. I want to drink from the stream, and I want you to sing the song to me. Elya promised he would. Madame Zeroni warned that if he failed to do this, he and his descendants would be doomed for all eternity. Hyperbole, maybe? At the time, Elya thought nothing of the curse. He was just a 15-year-old kid, and eternity didn't seem much longer than a week from Tuesday. Besides, he liked Madame Zeroni and would be glad to carry her up the mountain. He would have done it right then and there, but he wasn't yet strong enough. We'll stop right there for part one. We have another gap coming up, but we got to meet Elya. Does Elya seem like a good dude? He does. Not someone who would curse his whole family, right? Madame Zeroni's trying to help him out. Wonder what happens. We shall see. On to the next.